There are things so small, we don't even bother to name them. Just a favor, a gentle request, a familiar word from someone we care about. And we say yes, without thinking, without anticipating, because we tell ourselves, just this once, because we believe, I should do this, or simply because we don't want anyone to be upset. But then the years go by, and each just this once becomes a pattern. Each seemingly harmless thing slowly wears us down from within. And one day, we suddenly realize we've been living for others for so long. We no longer know who we really are. Carl Jung called this the erosion of the soul. When we gradually trade our true self just to keep the world around us at peace. In today's video, I'll share with you 8 seemingly small requests that are quietly fracturing your soul, not to make you cold, but to guide you back to yourself, stronger, more awake, and more at peace. Because peace doesn't come from pleasing others. It begins the moment you dare to choose yourself fully. Let's begin. The first one is something many women carry with them their whole lives, without even knowing. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from working too much, but from carrying things that were never yours to hold. Tired. From always being the one called in after the chaos. Tired. From not being able to say no. Tired. From believing that if you don't carry it, everything will fall apart. And so, you carry it, year after year, from one person to another. No one forces you, but no one tells you it's okay to rest, either. Have you ever felt that way when everyone else is spinning in their storms? And you, though utterly drained, still hold everything together? Because you fear that if you fall, everything will collapse with you. Maybe you're the eldest sister, the mother, the emotional anchor of your family. You are the strong one. So others assume you don't need to be held. They forget that even the strong feel pain. Carl Jung once said, "We do not become whole by living only in the light, but by befriending the darkness within us, where unspoken wounds reside." And sometimes, the biggest shadow is the false belief that I must endure in order to be good. No, you don't need to save everyone to be lovable. You don't need to prove anything. You owe no one your silent sacrifice. Kindness, without boundaries, eventually becomes a form of self-betrayal. Take a closer look. How many responsibilities are you carrying that aren't truly yours? How many heavy emotions are you holding for others? Simply because you're the only one who stays calm. You can still love them, still care. But mature love does not mean carrying the karma of others. And you know what? You don't have to break in half so that someone else can stand tall. It's time to set it down. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, "I do not reject love. I'm simply releasing what no longer belongs to me." That is not selfishness. That is awakening. Money, often described as material, cold, lifeless. But for many women, money is not just a number. It is safety. It is the result of a lifetime spent holding back, managing carefully, and setting aside personal needs for the sake of those they love. And because of that, when someone comes and says, "Mom, can I borrow a bit of money?" Or, "Sis, I'm really stuck. Can you help me out? Homeware. Your heart responds before your mind even has time to think. You don't want to disappoint anyone. You don't want to hurt anyone. You're afraid of being seen as cold, selfish, or lacking compassion. And so you open your wallet. But have you noticed? Some moments of generosity come not with gratitude, but with the expectation that you'll say yes again next time. And you begin to feel not like you're helping, but like you're being drained. Carl Jung once said, "When the ego is not strong enough to set boundaries, we get swept up in other people's needs, as if they were our own responsibilities." You've lived long enough to know that every dollar you earn comes from mornings when your body still aches, from simple meals, saved to pay school fees for your children, from the times you said no to something you loved, just to make sure someone else had enough. So yes, you have the right to ask, am I giving out of love, or am I paying a debt for guilt that was never mine? You have the right to protect your emotional and material resources gently, but firmly, because when someone borrows money not out of urgency, but out of a pattern of careless spending, what they're asking for isn't just money. They're asking you to co-sign their choices. And if you say no, you might be resented, misunderstood, but you will preserve the security that took you years to build. Remember, this giving is beautiful, but knowing when not to give that is wisdom. And in a world where women are so often expected to be soft-hearted, financial boundaries may be one of the deepest forms of self-love. There is a role that many women have taken on within their families, a role with no script handed to them and no compensation offered. It is the role of the peacemaker. You are the one in the middle, the one who softens when both sides are burning, the one running back and forth between mother and child, brother and sister, husband and wife, father and everyone else. You try to keep the family calm, as if, without your intervention, everything might explode. And you're tired, but you keep going. Because if not you, then who? Have you ever heard things like, "Mom, can you please talk to them for me?" You're the only one they'll actually listen to. If you don't step in, they'll never admit they were wrong. These words sound like trust, but in truth, they are a subtle handoff of emotional responsibility. Carl Jung once said, "No one can walk the path of another soul. We can walk beside them, but we cannot walk it for them." You were not born to mend the broken pieces that others have no desire to repair. Think back to a recent time when you tried to mediate a family argument. At first, you just wanted to help. You believed you could help them understand each other better. But what happened? You got stuck in the middle. Both sides became upset with you. Or worse, they reconciled and took the peace for granted, while you were left completely drained. You are not the referee in battles you didn't start. No one has the right to ask you to stand in the middle at the cost of your own peace. You have every right to say, "This is not my conversation. I believe you can resolve this when you're truly ready." Many women, especially in midlife, have spent most of their lives believing a false story that their value lies in calming others. But eventually, you begin to see gentleness is no longer healing. When it forces you into silence around toxicity, you can love a family in conflict without having to fix it for them. You can be present without carrying the emotional weight of everyone around you, because each person must learn to make peace with themselves. And you are different now. You are old enough, deep enough, wise enough to choose to step back. not out of indifference, but because you know healing doesn't come from interference. It comes from inner awakening. So if someone calls you the peacemaker, smile and say, I no longer stand in the middle. I now stand for my own peace. There are some comments that sound like concern, but in truth, they are subtle denials of your being. You should dress differently. Mom, the way you talk is outdated. You really need to keep up with the times. They seem harmless, but when repeated enough, they become an unspoken message. You are not enough. And slowly, you begin to doubt yourself. You start to adjust. You begin to stay quiet in gatherings. You force a smile when your beliefs are dismissed as old-fashioned, not because you believe they're right, but because you're tired. Tired of holding on to yourself in a world that constantly wants you to become someone else. Carl Jung once wrote, "Do not try to become someone else. You are already a unique being, and your task is to become that fully." But you forgot. You forgot that you once loved bright red, forgot how you used to sing along to an old song in the car, forgot what it felt like to spend an afternoon doing nothing, just lying there, breathing in stillness. You forgot because you spent so much time trying to fit in, fitting the expectations of your children, fitting the standards of your colleagues, fitting what society deems appropriate for a woman of your age. But do you know this? You don't need to look younger. You don't need to talk like someone else. You don't need to change the way you walk, laugh, or live just to make someone else feel more comfortable around you. You have lived long enough to know what brings you peace. You have endured enough loss to understand that only living truthfully can stop your soul from screaming in silence. So come home, not to an old version of you, but to your truest self, whole, brave, and original. Do this tonight, before bed. Stand in front of the mirror, look into your own eyes, and whisper, I remember now. I am me, and I am enough. You don't need to change. You only need to remember who you were before the world told you who you should become. There is a kind of bondage that is invisible. It doesn't come with yelling, nor with threats. It's just a sad glance, an unfinished sentence. If you really loved me, if you truly understood, if you actually cared, and so you step back, you nod, you bend yourself once again, just to preserve someone else's emotions. You begin to manage other people's feelings as if it were your sacred duty. You measure every word. You take care not to upset anyone, even if it means hurting yourself. Carl Jung once wrote, "The shadow is not only the dark things we try to hide, but also the parts of us that have remained silent too long just to keep others comfortable." Do you recognize yourself in this? Living with quiet tension, afraid that even the smallest action might make someone angry, sad, or disappointed. Have you ever postponed an important decision just because you were worried about how they might feel? Have you ever dimmed your joy because you feared that your happiness might leave someone else behind? Love is not performance. It is not soothing others by silencing your own truth. Because if a relationship only survives at the cost of your inner freedom, it's not love. It's control, sweet on the surface, but quietly consuming you from within. You have the right to feel joy, the right to be honest, the right to make others uncomfortable if what you do is true and causes no harm. You are not the shelter for everyone's emotional storms. You are not a stage where others act out their victimhood. Every time you choose yourself, ask yourself this simple question: am I making this decision because it's what I truly want, or because I'm afraid someone might get hurt? If the answer leans toward the latter, pause and remember, you were not born to keep the world quiet by silencing your soul. They may be upset. You may feel a sting of guilt, but eventually, you'll feel yourself exhale. Fully tell yourself, even just once, I am not responsible for other people's emotions. I am responsible for the truth and peace within my own soul. There are things that have passed, but have not disappeared. They remain within us, like invisible scars. No one sees them. No one asks. And sometimes, even you forget that you're still carrying them. A sentence your father said when you were 10. If a girl is too strong, who's going to marry her? A moment of silence from your mother when you asked Mom, if I'm not like everyone else, would that make you sad? Memories like these, ones you thought had faded, still linger. They shape you. They manage you and quietly rewrite the way you live your life. Have you ever wondered, why do I always fear being rejected? Why, before every important decision, do I hear a voice inside saying, be careful, don't let anyone down? Maybe that voice isn't even yours. Maybe it's an echo from the past of things you once heard, once believed, and once silently accepted. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Many people live their whole lives not by their own will, but by a script written in childhood, by expectations, by silence, by things no one ever asked if they truly agreed with. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, what I'm doing today? Is it a free choice, or just the unconscious continuation of old beliefs? You are no longer that little girl. You've lived through storms and sunshine. You've lost, endured, and risen. And you have the right to rewrite the script. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need to prove anything. You only need to know this: memories may stay, but they no longer get to drive. You can start with a simple act. Write down an old belief that's been limiting you. Place your hand over it and whisper, thank you for protecting me. But now, I no longer need you. You are not betraying the past. You are simply choosing not to let it become your future. There is a kind of burden that doesn't sit on your shoulders and doesn't show on your face. It lives in vague, loaded words, in glances filled with silent reminders, in moments of silence that make you feel indebted. I sacrificed my whole life for you. Don't be selfish. I've taken care of you for years now. You need to be more considerate. When we were little, I gave up so much for you. Now it's your turn. You don't hear the word debt, but you feel it clearly. You no longer feel free to say no. You no longer feel at ease choosing what you truly want, because one thought keeps echoing in your mind. If I don't do this, I'm ungrateful. Carl Jung once said, the most insidious form of manipulation doesn't come from shouting, but from repeated appeals to loyalty and obligation. Gratitude is a beautiful emotion, but when it's used as a trap, it becomes an invisible shackle, one that makes you live not out of love, but out of fear of being called ungrateful. Are you living like that? Have you ever said yes to something, not because you truly wanted to, but because you were afraid they'd bring up the past, afraid of being labeled as ungrateful? If love only holds value when you pay it back, then it's no longer love. It's a transaction, and you always end up on the losing side. You don't owe anyone something just because they once gave you something. True kindness doesn't demand repayment, and true sacrifice doesn't need to be reimbursed. Remember, someone who truly loves you will never require you to stay silent, nod your head, or lose yourself just to prove you're grateful. You can be grateful and still hold your boundaries. You can feel moved and still stay awake enough not to become an emotional debtor for life. Tonight, try this. Write down one sentence that once made you feel invisibly indebted. Read it back, and then calmly say, "I thank you, but I no longer belong to that debt." Because you were not born to live under forced gratitude. You were born to be valued, even when you dare to say no. There comes a stage in life when you no longer feel thrilled by noise and excitement, no longer feel the need to be right in every argument, no longer strive to please everyone. You simply want peace. But then you realize peace doesn't arrive on its own. It's not a gift handed to you. It's the result of all the times you dared to say no, dared to step back, dared to walk away from anything that even slightly bruised your heart. Carl Jung once said, "The truly mature person does not seek light from the outside. They return within where the light has always been, waiting to be remembered." You don't need to please others to be loved. You don't need to prove your kindness by sacrificing yourself. You don't need to save the world by quietly losing your soul in the process. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is a sacred responsibility to your deepest self. Peace does not mean everything is calm. It means you can stand in the middle of life and still remain whole within. Yes, some may say you've changed. You may be called distant, harder to read, less accommodating. But if the cost of being understood is living in conflict with yourself, then you are willing, because you've come far enough to know that being yourself, peaceful, awake, and whole, is the only thing truly worth keeping. So starting today, choose this above all else. Choose peace. Choose not to carry what isn't yours. Choose to protect the treasures you've spent decades building: your health, your dignity, your inner light. Choose not to let old memories, other people's emotions, or vague criticisms pull you away from your true self. And if someone asks you, "Why are you living differently?" now smile and say, "Because I'm learning to protect the most precious thing I ever lost, myself." You've just walked through 8 things, seemingly small, yet capable of quietly draining the light within you, day by day. You've spent so many years doing what's right for others. And now, perhaps it's time to begin doing what's right for yourself. Carl Jung once said, "The journey is not about seeking something new, but returning to what has always been there forgotten." So, if today you feel weary, pause for a moment. You don't have to decide anything. Just place your hand over your heart and listen. There's no rush. The shadow is not in a rush. Your soul is not in a rush. You only need to breathe. You only need to hear the quiet whisper inside that says, "I see you. I am still here, and I'm waiting for you to come home. If something in this video touched you, know that you're not alone. There are many others also walking the path of stepping out of old roles and returning to their true selves, even if late, still whole. You're welcome to leave a single word, return in the comments, as a gentle promise to yourself. And if you're ready, we'll meet again in future videos, where every step forward brings you closer to inner freedom. Peace to you. You are worthy. You have always been worthy.